Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming to the weekly live for relationship communications. Welcome to this week's weekly live. I'm thrilled that you are here with me. And for those of you joining us for the first time, I'm Lisa DeToffol, and I'm the founder of Relationship Communications. It's my online community where I work with established and aspiring entrepreneurs. And today I'm going to be your host for the Relationship Communications Weekly Live, which is my weekly live stream show that airs every Friday morning at 10 a.m. Eastern Time. So I do hope that you'll make a note of that and make plans to join us every Friday morning at 10 a.m. If you are joining me live, please do say hello in the comments and let me know where you're coming in from. I would love to hear that. My goal here is to share tactical and practical information to help you get where you want to be faster than you can go on your own. I've been an entrepreneur for 6 years. I've made many mistakes, and I'm here to tell you I can help you move through them more quickly by sharing what I have learned through my experiences. So again, let me know if you're here live, joining me live, and where you're coming in from. We are streaming in various different places. So again, thank you for joining me today. If you are watching us on YouTube, please go ahead and hit that subscribe button or ring that bell so that you can be notified every time that we go live. So today, our topic is successfully setting boundaries with clients or customers, which is a very, very important topic, right? But before we dive into our topic, I would like to introduce myself. So when I was a preschool teacher in 2017 and 25 years prior to that, I dreamed of working from home. But I had been through 2 messy divorces and been a single mom twice, and it didn't seem possible. I was the breadwinner for my household and was scared to take a chance to do anything and go out on my own. Then I met my husband, Jeff, in 2012, and that is when I could see the possibility of my dream coming true. However, it was not an easy task. But with Jeff's support, I started a training program to learn how to be a virtual assistant in 2018, which also showed me how to start my own business. So by the end of that program, I had a couple of clients and have continued to grow my business and the Tiger Eye Solution team that was established in 2021 every single year. So my life looks a whole lot different today than it did back then. This is my husband, Jeff, our children, Caleb, Matthew, and Alyssa, and our grandchildren, John Price, Hattie, and Anakin. So set the bar high for yourself when you're setting goals. And if they're not reachable right away, don't give up hope. Continue reaching for those goals, or maybe just taking them one bite at a time, right? So today's topic is successfully setting boundaries with clients. Boundary setting is a great topic because it's really personal. It's how we decide what's okay and what's not okay, right? So I've noticed in our community that sometimes things get a little out of hand when we're not clear on our boundaries. Boundaries have always existed, but I think pop culture, in the last 20 years has popularized them and made them more of a thing, right? Because of that, I've set certain boundaries, of course, put certain boundaries in place for myself. But sometimes I don't think of it as boundaries. I think of it more like rules, Lisa's rules. So you could think of it that way as well, if that helps you. I have been in business for 6 years. I started out as an author assistant with only 2 to 3 clients. I built my business over time. Over the 6-year span, I have built a successful business. I've raised my rates. I figured out a lot of stuff. I talked to other entrepreneurs who were successful, and they helped me figure out how to share what I was doing to have a successful virtual assistant business. Now, that's my story about my specific business. Now, I know your business is different and your story is going to be different, right? So what I'm sharing is going to pertain to you, but it might pertain to you in a different aspect or manner just because you have a different type of business than what I have. Okay. So I have worked with over 100 clients and really learned a lot about boundary setting. Learned a lot about human nature as well, because we work with so many different personalities. We have voices in our heads, they have voices in their heads, and, all the things are going on, and you're in someone else's business. Well, in my case, I'm in someone else's business when I'm working with them, right? And when they're paying you, of course, to do XYZ, whatever it is that you are doing for them, right? And that can be emotional for people, for you, maybe for the client or the customer as well, because money is emotional in a good way, and then sometimes in a not so good way. And, I have made over $500,000. It's kind of weird to think about that. I was able to earn what I needed and more. I'm still a virtual assistant earning over $100,000 a year. And it's amazing that from an idea of helping people, doing stuff I already know how to do, and had the willingness to learn new things as clients needed those things, I have been able to make a living and help support my household. It's been really magical and sometimes difficult. It goes from one end of the spectrum to the other, of course. And I feel like because I have control over my day and control over my life, really, I have been able to make that happen in the past 6 years, right? It's because I set certain boundaries and put them in place, and I follow them. I keep them in place and make sure I follow them and others around me, whether it's my clients, my family, etc., know what my boundaries are, right? So the thing is that's really amazing. And by changing my life, by looking at the things that were not working and setting boundaries in a lot of ways, and then making decisions too around those boundaries. And it was okay with me, right? And sometimes it wasn't. That's okay too. But I was able to build a successful business, right? So let's talk about what are boundaries. Boundaries is a line that marks the limits of an area, kind of like a line in the sand, if you will, if you want to look at it or think about it that way. So boundaries is a line that marks the limits of an area. And the thing I want you to know is that a boundary is not selfish. It's just a thing. It's just a line, okay? And it's important to get clear on where your lines are. And you can move them, you can shift them. You can have different boundaries with different people. And most of us likely do. The boundaries you have with your family are not going to be the same boundaries you have with your clients or customers, right? So, like I said, you could have specific boundaries with your family members, but with clients, you're going to have different boundaries or different lines, right? So there's lots of different areas of limit. You think about a stranger on a bus. You don't want them to touch you because you don't know them. You don't know who they are. That's a boundary. You have a boundary that you do not want to be touched by a stranger, okay? It doesn't have to be this thing that's not movable. It can be movable. You sometimes have to check in with yourself when something comes up and decide how you're going to handle it. All right? Some boundaries for me are actually firm. I'm not ever going to move them. And then other boundaries are a little softer. And if I need to move them, I can, or I will. Okay, I want you to think about your boundaries. What defines them? And where Do you trip up sometimes? I've heard people say people pleasing. That's interesting because we all have that. That's the thing in some businesses, especially like mine, a virtual assistant business. We want to please people. We want to please our customers, right? We want to help people. That's at the core of who you are. But the thing is, let's talk about the get mad rule. This is a rule that I have. I check everything on the list, basically. If I do that, will I get mad? Right? When something comes up, I just have to check with myself and say, okay, if I do this, am I going to get mad? Because if I get mad, I've invited someone across the line, across my boundary. Because people can't cross that line unless we let them, right? So here's how the get mad rule works. If my client Jim, who I love, wants to publish a newsletter on Thursday, I need to have it on Tuesday in order for everything to work properly. I need to have all his information and everything on Tuesday so I can get it put together and it can be published on Thursday. Sometimes he comes in on Wednesday morning with the information, and I have to check with myself and say, okay, I say yes to this newsletter, and I don't say that a lot because my week is so busy, and sometimes we may have to move it to Friday. If I want to help him, is it going to make me mad? So I think I'm going to be working Wednesday night for sure, because he just sent me the information Wednesday morning, right? And how's that going to go? I've known him for a while. I normally go to church on Wednesday nights. So most likely it's going to make me mad because I'm going to have to rearrange my schedule, either not go to church so I can work on his newsletter, or contact him and say, the newsletter will go out on Friday because you just got your information to me today, and not miss what I already have scheduled for Wednesday nights. So this rule is really important. So what type of boundaries do you have? And apply to your personal and professional life. There's so much more, guys, that we could dive into around this topic. I may do a part 2 next week on boundaries. Boundaries are really, really important, and it helps keep you organized. Is one way that it can help you. It helps you not to get mad as often when something comes up last minute, such as my client sending me his newsletter information at a later time than when I actually needed it. I needed it to come in on Tuesday morning, not Wednesday morning, so that I could get busy and go ahead and start getting his newsletter put together. But since he got busy and he didn't send me the information till a Wednesday morning, then I contact him and say, your newsletter will go out on Friday. That's me setting my boundaries and not letting him cross that line, right? Because if I say, okay, thank you, this newsletter will go out on Thursday as scheduled, then I'm letting him cross that line, because that means I have to rearrange my schedule on Wednesday to get that newsletter put together to go out on Thursday. So if I have boundaries in place, I have to have, check in with myself and say, do I want to let him cross this line? Because if he's doing it now, he's probably going to do it again later as well. And that's not a habit I want to let a client start, sending me information at a later time than when I requested it to be sent to me, right? So in order for me not to get mad and everything to continue to run smoothly, if he has sent me the information on a Wednesday morning, I simply reply back to him and say, thank you for the information. However, the newsletter will now go out on Friday. instead of Thursday. Right. Please let me know in the comments if this was helpful. If you would also like to have part 2 next Friday, because there's a lot of more information that I could share around boundaries, for sure. There's a lot more than just what are boundaries and the get mad rule that I could share with you. So if you'd like to hear more around this, please let me know in the comments, and I can share part 2 next week. Hope everyone has a great weekend, and I will see you again soon.